Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Cuzco from Queen Games. Cuzco is a 2 to 4 player dice placement game that is a re-implementation of Bora Bora. Both of these games are designed by Stefan Feld. This is part of the new Queen Games City Collection. This in particular is one of the more deluxe versions of the game. They are expensive, but they are also, well, they're very, very good games for the most part, which is part of the problem that we have to deal with. But in any case, let's go ahead and talk about these games. Before I go into the specifics of this, I will not be going into the main differences between this and Bora Bora, primarily because it's been long enough since I've played Bora Bora that I don't remember the specific nuances. I know there's some more card variety, the map and island you're playing with over here is a little bit different, some elements of this track are a little bit different, even just the point scoring and the way that's splayed out. So there's a lot of fine-tuning going on here. I would say there's not any major large shifts as far as my own personal remembering of how the games play or how they feel. Past, I'd say there's a larger degree of god powers on the cards. That's something I feel there's a lot of difference there, but it's a lot of small quality of life improvements, or at least for me feel like quality of life improvements, but I won't be heavily getting into all those nuances. What I will do is I will tell you how Bora Bora plays, and then I'll go ahead and talk about my thoughts, opinions, review, all of that stuff. And I just realized that I said I'll tell you how Bora Bora plays when I mean I'll tell you how Cuzco plays. That kind of mix-up might happen throughout this video. But let's go ahead and start off. This is a dice placement game. You're going to be rolling dice and placing 3 dice every single round across 6 rounds, meaning you effectively have 18 turns to take your actions. That plus the various extra actions you're going to get, both from the various god cards and from these tiles you're going to be slowly adding to your board as you play through the game. On your turn, you're going to go ahead and roll your dice over here, and I have 2 players' dice, so you're going to roll the dice. This is an abysmally bad roll over here. 4, 2, and 2, and 3, 2, and 1. This is the kind of roll that if I was playing somebody right about now, I'd be like, why don't we just go ahead and re-roll that first turn? But it is what it is. We have these dice over here. If you are playing with this little module, the blue player is going to get this little thing because they have 2 dice that are the same, so they'll get a modification token that they can utilize. But past that, you're going to be taking these dice over here, and you're going to be using the dice for the core actions you have over here. Now, this is currently player count specific, which means if you're playing at different player counts, you might have different ways these tiles flip over to give you more action spots. And the reason for that is because this is a very restrictive game. When you take an action, the higher the dice, the stronger the action. But there's a catch to that, and let's go ahead and show you the catch by manipulating these dice to a higher number so you can get a sense of just how powerful or how dangerous this game can be as you play through it. Let's go ahead and do a 6, 6, and 5 versus that 3, 2, and 1 right now. Because right now the 3, 2, and 1 is, well, lower than the 6, 6, and 5, but red has the opportunity to lock blue out of actions as they place their die. Because when you place a die, in all but the most basic action, this action here is simply place a die, get 2 points. The other actions, you have to place your die such that it's lower than any previously placed die. Not equal or lower, just lower. So, right about now, if red's going first, red can go ahead and take their 3 and try to lock in the action that they want. They go ahead and they take the 3, and maybe they put it over here, and they take one of these tiles over here. We'll get to the action shortly. Then blue can go ahead and go, and they can place one of their dice. Maybe they go over here, but then red immediately locks them out of the next action, meaning that they have to choose one of these other actions because they can't place a die that's lower. So even though red right now has weaker actions, they have a lot more flexibility because lower dice can go more places. So blue dice, not blue dice, higher dice are better and more stronger, more powerful, but they have less freedom of movement, which will frequently become a problem for you, especially when you're vying over the same spots in the game. But that nuance aside, the basic idea is you place a die, you take an action based on the strength of the die, and then other players go ahead and place more dice, but you can only go down in value except for that 2-point spot. And with that, let's talk about the general spots you have. We're going to have movement on the island, which is this spot over here, and again, this is one of those tiles you're going to flip depending on the player count. But when you go here, you get to move your person along these tracks following the numbers. Depending on the side over here, you might be limited to specifically dirt or stone pathways, but otherwise, in this 2-player map over here, 2 or 3 players, you simply go ahead and move somewhere equal to or lower than your die. So you can go ahead and move off this over here to go into a village, and when you move into a village, you're going to be taking, let's say we just wandered into this village, you're going to be taking one of your tokens off your player board, placing it into the village, and then getting a pink feather that you can add to your board. That's going to give you some flexibility because clearing up your board is how you add more of these tiles to your player board, so you definitely want to clear those off your board and put them in the village, in addition to the fact that if yours is the highest token on the village at the end of the game, you're going to get the points for that village as well. So you're playing that little mini game as far as trying to be mindful of the map to be able to get those feathers, which you'll need soon, to be able to free up more spots on your board so you can put more tiles in, and to be able to get the points on the village themselves. So a few things going on as far as how those tie together. Then we're going to have your 2-point action, which is pretty basic. Over here we have a kind of catch-all variable action where you spend the pips of the die. Some things cost 1 pip, some things cost 2 pips, but you take all those pips, you spend them on these over here, and you either are going to get 1 point for each pip over there, or alternatively, you can spend 1 point to move one of these tiles down. We're going to talk more about these tiles later, but these tiles come in 2 main colors, and when you slide them down, you're going to get either food or advancement on this track, depending on whether it's a blue or orange tile, and for each pip you can slide them down, at which point you can no longer use them until you, well, there are some cards that'll bump them back up, but in general you can't use them for that again, so you're trying to get food, which you'll spend on various goods over here, or move up this track, which will affect turn order and give you a giant chunk of points as well. Or you can spend 2 pips to be able to either clear a shield from here down to your reserves, that skips having to place it on the island, but it does free you up to be able to get more ability tiles, or to just take a feather from the general supply to be able to put them to your board, again, in case you're not wandering around this board that much, or to be able to take an offering token or a god card. In general, the offering tokens and the god cards are all going to work together to be able to give you powerful abilities. You can spend an offering token along with a card and take the ability on that card, which means you're frequently paying attention to the display and the various abilities on those cards and how they're going to help you, giving you extra things or working your way around the rules. Then we have over here, this spot over here is going to have you putting a priest on the track over here. These are going to score points every single round, but also they're going to give you access to these tiles over here if you get your hands on them, and then, well, points every round and access to that. But also, you're going to get an offering over here, these little fire tokens. You're going to get these from this action, and whenever you return to the center of the island, you'll get them as well. These will give you over here, you'll get either a god card or an offering, in addition to the fact you'll get either 1 movement on the track or 1 food. So you take 2 different things from 2 separate pools of rewards whenever you take that little fire offering token benefit. Then we have over here, this spot over here is going to be how you flip these tiles over here. One of the reasons you're putting feathers on your board is whenever you have 2 feathers, you free up the ability to flip that, which you're going to have to spend a die equal to or lower than one of these over here, so 1 through 6. You're going to get the points on the tile, but also the points equal to the round, 10, 7, or 4, depending if it's round 1 or 2, 3 and 4, or 5 or 6 respectively. And then lastly, my personal favorite spot is going to be over here, which is how you gather these tiles, which are going to go onto your display, giving you additional actions you can take at the end of the round as a freebie. Because when you're done with these actions, you're going to go ahead and follow this little script down here, going to stage 2, where each player can go ahead and activate 1 orange and 1 blue tile, which generally gives you just wild actions you can do. Movement along paths, freeing up your board over here, gathering new tiles to you, giving you resources, moving up different token tracks, giving you offering tokens or cards. These tiles are going to be a catch-all for a ton of different things you can get, but you can only activate 1 of the blue and the orange each turn, well, without cards that is, and some rules we're not getting into as far as how you stack tiles. You can stack the same kind for stronger effect. They're a little different each way. I'm not going to heavily go into that. But you're going to be able to activate tiles, additional actions and benefits, which means you have the 3 core actions, but then you have up to 2 additional kind of actions. Sometimes they're full actions, sometimes they're resources, but you're going to be getting all of those, and that's in addition to the god cards as well that you'll be benefiting from as well. So it sounds like 3 actions times 6, only 18 is not a lot, and it isn't until you start cascading it with everything else that this game lets you do. By the way, I haven't really told you, but these tokens over here, what they do is you can go ahead and trade these in to be able to immediately activate a card from the display, which kind of acts as an offering token and a card at the same time, but with a little more flexibility because it's like a wild card, but one that might go away at any given point. Then from there, you're going to go through the sequence over here, which is where you move this token around area to area. You're going to go ahead and check turn order and give points, then reset these tracks to the beginning. You're going to move down here where you're going to give the points for your priests and that token. You're going to move to the market over here where, depending on where this token is, you're going to be able to buy from the current round these tokens, trading in food for points. And then lastly, you're trying to achieve these goals. You're going to have some starting goals on your board over here. You're going to be gathering more of them as you play through the game, and they're going to give you something you can do to get 6 points every single round. So you're going to be able to score 6 of them, plus the final 3 that you have you can also score, which means you're looking at a full total of 9 times 6 or 54 possible points for fulfilling all these goals if you build towards them as you play, and that can be like a quarter or a fifth of your score in this game, or even a third if you're playing poorly, to be frank. So that's going to be a lot of points you want to be mindful of as you get those various goal tokens to score. And then the last thing you do is endgame. Well, you do a little cleanup round to round, but when you get to endgame, you're going to score for all the various things you've done over here. So these are going to give you just, well, anything you've done everything of. If you've gotten 12 feathers, if you've flipped all 6 of these tiles, if you've done all 9 goals, if you've gotten all 10 of your tokens onto the board, basically all the things that you can do. If you do everything on those things, well, you're going to get extra points for it. That is basically how you play Cuzco. Admittedly, I went through fast on this one, and I didn't go through all the, well, what the cards do, what the various, let's talk about one card, just so you have a sense of what a card can do. There's a lot of abilities in the cards. I think there's 4 It's either 4 times 5 or 3 times 5, but there's a bunch of different abilities to go through, but let's focus on one. This one, when you spend it with an offering token, you can place a die out of order. So you can place a 6 higher than another die, which gives you a lot of freedom to spend those 6s over here. This one's going to let you duplicate one of your blues and oranges to make a stronger effect as you go through it. This one lets you return a person's piece of the supply. Normally when you put a piece on this track, it bumps everything down below your number, but this time you can just straight up bump somebody back to the supply, which can be incredibly advantageous to be able to get more dominance on that track as you're going through it. So a bunch of card effects, a bunch of other effects, there's a whole bunch just of effects left, right, and center in this game, but the basic idea of Cuzco is you roll 3 dice, you place those dice on various spots on the board, being mindful of that lower restriction while trying to find your pathway forward to optimize your score across a whole bunch of ways to score points. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into the review, starting off with ease of play. The game is... I don't know if I can really rate how easy the game is to play, because I've been playing Bora Bora for a long time, so the general system of the game I am familiar with. I will say this does follow Queen Games' rulebook structure, which generally is pretty straightforward and easy to follow. I do not think it's the most complicated game to follow overall, but neither is the most simple. There's a lot of things to juggle here. Every individual thing is kind of simple and straightforward, but the full sum of how it all interweaves, there's definitely a lot going on. I would say for the amount of things going on, I would say the rulebook is fairly straightforward, but, you know, take that with a grain of salt. Game time, I'd say the game generally comes in at around the 90-minute range. It can be faster than that when you're playing with like a 2-player game who knows the game. You can probably come close to an hour, maybe a drop over. And then if you're playing a full 4-player complement with new players, you might be looking at a full 2 hours, if not more. As far as table space, this version of the game is a little larger than the original Bora Bora. It's going to be a complete hodgepodge of just table boards. We have our main board over here, we have our other board over here, and then every individual player has this full board over here. And as you can see, it's kind of overlaying on top of each other because that's the only real way I can get this all on camera. And that's with 1-player board. Imagine 4 of these. So it definitely gets to be a bit more of a table hog than the original Bora Bora. Not unmanageable, but a lot going on in the game. As far as what I like, don't like, I can see others not liking. The production and game quality over here to begin with, starting off with what I like, the production and game quality are very solid. And I say this as somebody who has been kind of mixed on the Queen Games redesign so far. I found some don't look that great, some look about as good as the originals, and few of them look better. Cuzco, I think, might be one of my favorites as far as the shifts and changes from the way the original Bora Bora is to Cuzco. I like the overall, well, I mean, the name problems aside, there's another game called Cuzco, which is unnecessarily confusing, but name problems aside, the general production, especially if you have some of these, acrylic tiles over here, very solid over there. The art, the presentation, graphic design, all that stuff. I do like this one more than some of the other Queen Games City Collection redesigns. Past that, I'll say that the general game, and this is where a lot of my review is going to be similar for Bora Bora or Cuzco, but obviously I'm focusing on Cuzco here. But the general 18 actions across the course of the game, but with that cascading effect is really where the game shines. 18 is never enough for me. 18 actions is like, it feels like I'm so restricted from the get-go. Every time I take a turn, it's one of my 18 only actions, but that's not actually true because you have those god cards. All these god cards are going to give you tons of ways to break the rules, and I love having those extra flexibility, those extra actions, doing more things. I like having all these orange and blue tiles over here, and they have specific names over here as far as that they are, but you're going to be going into your tableau over here, giving you extra ways to just do more in the game, and you're going to start the game off in that very first turn. You can start thinking through, how can I get that orange and blue as fast as possible, because while everything in the game is strong, you do want to have at least one orange and at least one blue, because if you don't, you are literally giving up free actions that can be boosting you forward in the game. How many you get is a different conversation, but you want to get one of those very quickly. And so starting out the gate, you are immediately trying to decide some of the ways you're tweaking your tableau against the other players, the ways that you're better at the game against the other players. And I appreciate that forcing you into your own pathway early out the gate, while then giving you the freedom to explore anything in the game, because there is a lot of freedom. This is a game that I've played the original Bora Bora an absolute ton. I played Cuzco less than that, but still gone through it a bunch, and this gives you tons of ways to pursue different pathways to score points, and not just on their own merit, but also what the other players do and how they do it will also affect how you pursue your strategies and what's the most efficient. Whether you're playing at a 2, 3, and 4 player, you'll have different experiences, different ways to leverage, and different marketplaces or areas of the board that you're trying to be mindful of and not overly compete with the players while trying to get done what you need as you go for hero, as you go for turn order, as you try to spread around the board, gain those top bonus points as you go through it. There's a lot to do in this game, and you you do get that feeling of doing a lot, but you also can't do everything. This is a typical point salad Stefan Feld design that just works brilliantly as far as making you feel satisfied and always feeling rewarded, but then it's about how you optimize within that structure. It's about how you optimize within that system. Which powers and abilities and everything do you combine to be able to take advantage of it? I like the point, the dice system as far as giving you those dice over there, but then a stronger dice is a larger dice, but the smaller dice are a bit more flexible, and that really does show as far as the game design. There are a few times where Eternal feel unbalanced based on how people rolled, but most of the time it feels very, very fair in terms of that flexibility versus strength that you get, and how you can incorporate it to meet your needs as you try to get as much as possible done in Cuzco. There's just a lot going on in this game, and it all merges together beautifully to give you a system that drives you forward. These goals you have over here, that'll be another system that drives you forward as far as what types of things are you trying to do, where are you trying to specialize, and what are you going to do to stand out in a crowd, both in your own instinctive desire of how you want to play, but also what the goal tiles are driving you towards, because you cannot deny those 54 points. In fact, you actually get bonus points if you do all of them. You get an additional 9 points over there. So that's going to be 6 times 9 plus 9, so 7 times 9, 63 points that you do not want to skip out on as you play the game. As far as what I don't like about the game, there's really two small things to focus on, one bigger than the others. First of all is that the slow decrease in benefit in more tiles in the game. As you get more oranges and blues, the increasing benefit of them scales downwards, because you can only activate 1 blue and orange every turn unless you use some god cards to do so. But in general, that means you're going to feel a bit more like, I want to get everything on that first turn, but then there's a little less incentive to get them as the game goes on. There's still incentive. You still want that flexibility. You still want stronger actions. That's going to be present, but it definitely goes down a bit as you go through it, and then you want to be focusing on those end game points. Can I fill up my board? That's going to be an extra bonus 12 points, I believe. 12 points if you fill up your board. So you do have things you're trying to focus on, but it's all a juggling game as far as how you optimize. I would say a bigger thing I don't like is how in this board exploration, the person who's the top scores the points for any given village, which is an interesting structure as far as how you're going to be spreading out, and you could immediately have games. I've had games where somebody's kind of following you along, taking your points as you go, and it's just not a good feeling, and also it feels like it kind of rewards people going off in their own directions and not really focusing on the high player villages until somebody's further across the map, and even then they may come back and take things. There's a lot of incentive to not take things that are worth points early on, and I don't really love that perverse incentive structure. I've never really loved things that kind of give you a sense of you need to hold off lest somebody take the thing away from you. So to me, in a game that's full of feel-good moments, the one part of the game that's a feel-bad moment is the fact that even after you're done exploring on this map, people can take points from you. It incentivizes me to not explore, and I don't love that feeling. As far as I can see others not liking, first of all, the 2-player game could benefit from a bit more interaction. I still love the 2-player game, make no mistake, but I do think that some of the action flexibility here, this temple track over here, there are going to be elements of the game where it feels like a 3 or 4-player game has a bit more interaction going on. For me, it does have more interaction, but also more downtime, so I like the 2-player a lot, although 3 I'd say is probably still my favorite player count. Also, the dice placement game can feel not only restrictive, because it is restrictive, but it can be a mean game. Going back to 2 players, specifically at 2-player, it's going to be meaner, because at any player count, the game has the potential and the opportunity to feel mean regardless of the player count, but a 2-player is kind of a zero-sum game where everything I do to hurt you helps me, and that means that very often there are times where players are incentivized to place dice specifically in ways that lock you out of the thing that you're trying to do. This is a game where even trying to do your own thing positively can be mean to players, which means there's often incentive to look for how you can lock players out of action. So if you're not okay with a little bit of, not necessarily take that gameplay, but a gameplay that is aggressively intended to lower the other person's score or the ability of how much they can do, this game absolutely has that, especially if you're playing it on that level. If you're trying to specifically play for feel good and not have those moments, then they'll be less frequent. It's still there incidentally, but less common, as opposed to if you're playing this game normally, there's definitely a degree of punishment going on in the dice placement puzzle. As far as final thoughts on Cuzco, I've loved the original board for a long time. Stefan Feld is a designer that I've liked, I think, every single thing he's put out. I've enjoyed all of his games, and then inevitably, some of them stick around, some of them are in my collection, and others I move on from because there's only so many games I need in the genre when they are all delightful point optimization, puzzly little scoring engines. But Bora Bora is one that's still in my collection, or at least was still in my collection, because I'm I'm certain that I'm replacing it with Cuzco. There are elements of Bora Bora that I like more than the original Cuzco, small elements in terms of the graphic design, things like that, but I like the overall puzzle of Cuzco. I think they did do a good job of cleaning up some of the things, of giving you more god powers. I overall enjoy the system of Cuzco better, and again, the presentation is nothing to sneeze at either, and so for me, this gives me everything I liked about Bora Bora, arguably, and then some, and so for me, this is a 4.5 out of 5. I thoroughly enjoy what they've done with this one. It is, again, I haven't tried all their re-implementations yet so far, but from the ones that they've done, I really enjoy Marrakesh, although that's a new game, but I think from the re-implementations, from the ones I have tried, Cuzco to me so far is my favorite one they've done. So a 4.5 out of 5, absolutely fantastic game, and to me it does the original credit. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, I'll recommend Castle Burgundy. That's going to be another Stefan Feld dice placement puzzle that has held up continuously, arguably my favorite Stefan Feld game in my collection, although he has a bunch that are absolutely fantastic, but the Castle Burgundy is going to be a totally different, slightly more friendly dice placement puzzle that focuses a little bit less on the tableau and a little bit more on the general arc of the game, but absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend checking that out. And then also, I'll say that Alien Frontiers from, not Starling Games, the Tabletop Tycoon, Starling Games, whatever the name company at the moment, but Alien Frontiers is another dice placement puzzle that will have you trying to figure out how to place your dice on various worker placement spots in a very similar manner to the way Cuzco operates, but with a very different puzzle behind it. But if you like restrictive dice placement, I highly recommend checking out Alien Frontiers as well. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.